Hello everybody, welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic, and on today's episode, I'm not going to be talking about Star Wars: A Solo Story. So yes, that movie does come out today. I am going to make another video trying to break down some early statistics, some early numbers, some early box office numbers, also some early reactions that we're getting since we know that this film has already premiered in some other countries at this point, and it is premiering only in a few hours today, where I am currently in Louisiana. And so I am going to make a video on that, but before I do that, I want to talk about a movie that I actually just came from seeing, and it is called Pope Francis, A Man of His Word. So if you don't know anything about me, you should know that I am a devout Catholic. I am also a teacher of theology with a master's degree in theology as well, and I just also love talking about movies too. So this was kind of a perfect combination for me, because not only was it a film about the Roman Pontiff, but it was also a film in general, and it was a documentary, which tends to be films that I don't like overall, but I will say that my initial reaction to this film is overall very positive. It's a film that, the best way to describe it is powerful. This movie is incredibly powerful because I would say about 90% of the movie is talking from Pope Francis, is him speaking in Italian on various topics, and this film covers such a wide variety of topics. I mean, it really starts off in an interesting way where it starts off talking about Francis, St. Francis of Assisi, talking about the patron whom Pope Francis chose his name after. It then briefly goes through his time in Argentina. It also goes through his time in the very beginning when he was first elected, and then it kind of goes into some of the journeys that he goes on. It travels with him on the planes to these various locations. He answers various questions on a variety of hot topic issues. It covers a lot of the topics that have gotten really universal attention, including him on the plane where he says, "Who am I to judge?" when talking about homosexuality, including him meeting with a group of migrants, talking about migrants, about how we should be open and loving to these people because we should view them as they are, which are human beings. So overall, this film is very, very powerful. So if you are a Catholic, or even if you're just a fan of Pope Francis, because I know that there are a lot of Catholics who are, or not non-Catholics who are even fans of Pope Francis and like his message, I think you'll like this film. Also, if you're a fan of documentaries, for the most part, it's well made. I will say that there were certain parts to me that just didn't really connect, that just didn't really click. It seemed like it was aimless, because in the very beginning, it seemed like, okay, this is going to focus on Pope Francis's message on global warming, on how we should treat the earth, all these other different things, you know, all the things that are part of Catholic social teaching. Some would say certain things and our responsibilities more than what we actually have in writing in our teaching. But that seemed to be the focus at first. But then there was this transition away from that into other subtopics. And it was kind of weird because for the first 30 minutes or so, it's spent on how we should engage with the earth, what we should do with recycling, with pollution, how we're responsible even if we are not directly the cause of something. And it was interesting. Obviously, I have my own political problems with that, and I think that there's a wide range of thought about those various topics. But in the end, it was weird because it then transitioned into shorter, about 10, 15-minute clips about other topics and about other things. And so that was kind of jarring to me because it was going in a direction and then it stopped going in that direction. And so in the end, as a documentary, I can't really say it was the best documentary that I've seen as far as it being compelling, but I really did like the fact that 90% of it came from Pope Francis himself. It was not someone interpreting Pope Francis. It was Pope Francis speaking in an uncut way. There were not quick edits to any things that he was saying. He was just speaking about the various topics that were being discussed. And some of the things that he said, again, I have some issues as far as, you know, from a doctrinal standpoint on certain things, but when it comes to him as a pastor, he truly is what the church needs to be in today's world, which is a pastor. We need to reach out to people, especially those who are suffering, especially those who are undergoing some trials in their life. You know, the church needs to be there for them. We as human beings need to reach out to them as well. We need to see the humanity in all people, and he does that in a very, really, really good way. And so actually, as I was watching the film, there were a couple of things that I thought were really profound that he mentioned. So a couple of the quotes that he said was, he was talking about the Sabbath. He was talking about how God established the Sabbath, and he was talking about how we're connected to the Jewish people because of the concept of the Sabbath. But he made a really good point saying, we are not machines. And in that saying that we need the Sabbath, we need a day of rest. Again, when we hear the creation account, we hear about all these things happening, but then even God rest on the seventh day. And it wasn't, again, that's an anthropomorphizing, making human-like for those who are not studied on theological terms, but essentially making God human or making him have human-like traits. And even though it is what the writer was doing there, it is still something very important. It's showing us that God is trying to make clear to us that rest is important, that, and Pope Francis really understands this. We're not machines. Again, the dignity of the worker, the dignity of a person also relies on that person being able to take a break, to enjoy life. If you have children, to enjoy your children, to enjoy your friendships, all these other things. And that's why the Sabbath is so important. Again, to remember that we're not machines. He also gets a little bit morbid for a second. He also says, we all die, but we must reconcile ourselves with this, for we are not immortal. So talking about not just we all die and leave it at that, but saying we need to reconcile ourselves with this. We need to understand that we are indeed mortal beings, that we do not last forever. And so therefore our actions are very important. What we say today, what we do today, they have repercussions. And we can't just ignore them and say, I'll just put that off until tomorrow, because we don't know when the end is going to come. And we need to acknowledge and make right with ourselves that indeed we are going to end. We are going to expire from this earth. A couple more things that he said. We are responsible for our world, saying that even if we are not someone who is throwing trash in the street, even if we're someone who recycles, even if we're someone who does certain things right, we still have a sense of responsibility for what's going on in the world, and therefore we need to understand that, and we need to try and take part in that as well. And I think that that's something very important because, again, I have my own political thoughts on this. I lean more towards the the libertarian side of issues, but it's still also a part of our Catholic identity. It's part of the identity that we have in the church, is that we are the stewards of the earth. Now, what that means, what our responsibility is, whether a government should force someone to do that, those are where we have discussions and disagreements, but it still doesn't take away the fact that we do have a responsibility. And so we all are responsible for this earth. He says, who made us think we are God? Without freedom, we cannot love. Again, talking about how we need to understand that we have been given free will. He also uses this to try and help explain why there is suffering in the world, and why we need to understand that while we have freedom, and while that's a gift from God, and though God does love us all unconditionally, no matter what we do, we, because we have that freedom, can choose not to love God. And so, again, just all throughout this film, he's just saying so many things. Just a couple more things, and then I'll stop quoting. He says, two crucial things for life are a smile given freely and a sense of humor. I think all of us really need that in today's world. We live in a world that's so negative. We live in a world that has so much hatred in it. And we just really need to understand that sometimes a smile, a genuine smile at someone, can be something that uplifts them. And having a good sense of humor is also something where, instead of taking things so seriously all the time, enjoying life, being able to understand that life is more than just, obviously life is serious, but there's also time for levity that's needed. And that kind of ties back with his talk on the Sabbath and needing to rest as well. He also says that all we have in common is God's love and the freedom to reject it, saying that we are all in this boat together. We are all loved by God, even though we are all different. We have different viewpoints. We come from different places. We all have one thing in common, that is that God loves us, and also that we can choose to reject that love as well. And I think that was something that was very powerful. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, because it's something that has caused some controversy in the Catholic community, is this interpretation of this phrase, is he says, we must build bridges. Now, some people see this when he says that we shouldn't have walls, we should build bridges, that it's an attack on certain countries that do have walls, it's an attack on America for trying to build a wall, it's an attack on borders. But what he says, the full phrase of what he says, I think is what's most important. He says that we must build bridges intelligently. And I think a lot of people forget that last part, is that we must build bridges intelligently, meaning that we need to understand who we're reaching out to, how we are reaching out to them, and what we are trying to get out of that act of building a bridge. If we don't have that common understanding, it's going to be impossible to build a bridge to another person. So again, we should reach out to other people, but we must do so with common sense and with intelligence as well. And I think that's something that's very powerful in today's world. It's something that I think all of us can relate to. And again, not getting into the politics behind it, or what presidential candidate or which president is doing one thing or the other. Again, I don't really want to get into that, but we do still have all a common vocation to this, to try and to reach out to others, especially those who don't have anything, and to try to be the best person we can, to understand that they are a human person who is worthy of love. And that's really what this film is all about, is Pope Francis as a pastor, that being his goal, his end game for his for his overall ministry as pontiff of the Catholic Church. And I think that's something that all of us can connect to as well. And so overall, I'm going to give this film a solid B. Again, it's not the best documentary I've seen, but I think it has a really great message, not just for Catholics, but also for people who might just be fans of Pope Francis in general. All right, so have you seen this film? Do you have any thoughts? Have you seen any of the other documentaries? Because again, just to wrap this up, this was directed and was written and put together by Wim Wenders, who's a documentarian. So have you seen any of his other work? Have you, is there anything that you like about this movie in particular? Or do you have any questions or thoughts about this movie? Please let me know in the comments below. I've been having some really great discussions on mostly Star Wars related things, but I want to kind of open it up to other people too. So are there any things that you agree with, anything that you disagree with, any conversations that you want to have? Please leave me a positive comment below. Again, I don't like blocking people. I don't like removing comments, but if you're just going to attack without really wanting to have a dialogue, there's really no point to that. And I think that this is another reason why this movie is so important, because dialogue is so crucial. Dialogue is necessary for us to be able to survive, and dialogue is necessary for us to be able to move forward in this life. So I want to have dialogue with you guys, and so please leave a comment down below if you like what you hear, if you want to have a conversation. I would love to have that. So have a great day, guys, and I will be coming out with another video breaking down some numbers for Star Wars coming up in maybe about an hour or so. And so in the meantime, though, have a great day, guys, and as always, God bless.